Hello everyone, good morning. Welcome to our second webinar sessions. My name is Roy Fu, the head of Asia of the Hague Business Agency, and today I'm very happy to receive a new title as the moderator and the host of this webinar. The topic of today's webinar is regarding the successful strategies for COVID-19 crisis. And during these webinars, we will further elaborate to the associated legal risk and the opportunities for business. And besides THBA, so I would like to give my gratitude to BUREN Legal for hosting this webinar together with us. And to give you a brief introduction, BUREN Legal is one of the biggest law firms in The Hague with 130 experts who specialize in legal, tax, and notary services. And BUREN Legal has different offices in the Netherlands, Luxembourg, and in China. The focus market of BUREN Legal is China, Latin America, Japan, Russia, Spain, and Germany. And the good thing to know is that during this crisis, BUREN Legal established a COVID-19 desk, and it consists of lawyers and tax advisors from various practice groups to assist companies in legal and tax matters. Look at next slide, please. Yeah, and now I would like to introduce you to our speaker for today, Mr. Erwin van den Broek, Senior Associate Tax Advisor of BUREN, Ms. Frederike Henke, the Dutch and German law qualified lawyer of BUREN.
Thank you, Roy.
And the guy, and the guy in the middle, of course, is myself. It looks more, formal than the self-isolation times now. Yeah, but my name is Roy Fu, the head of Asia of the Hague Business Agency. Next slide. Before we start off the workshop, let us go through our program for today. The first speaker will be Mr. Erwin van den Broek, and he will share with us the recent developments in tax matters, options to stimulate cash flows to your organizations, and the bottleneck of the NOW measure. And after which, Ms. Frederike Henke will give some information about corporate law related to the requirements of digital meetings by the company. And Ms. Henke will also give some information regarding the contract law, such as possibilities to modify contracts. And she will use a first COVID-19 case law by the Netherlands Commercial Court to introduce and elaborate of this topic. Last but not least, the question and answer sessions. You can really submit your question during the webinars by clicking the Q&A buttons on your bottom left. And during these webinars, we were also asking you to fill in a very short questionnaire. The link of this questionnaire will pop up in your chat box during this webinar. And we hope you can participate in order to give us an ideas to improve our webinars in the future. So the webinars in total will take 1 hour, and please enjoy. And now I would like to give the floor to Mr. Erwin van den Broek. Next slide and switch to Erwin, please.
Thank you, Roy. My name is Erwin van den Broek, and I'm a tax advisor at BUREN. I will discuss today a few topics with you. First of all, I will discuss the developments of new tax measures. I will discuss how to stimulate your tax position in times of declining revenues. And finally, I will discuss some bottlenecks that we see in the NOW measure. So, the Netherlands has been in a lockdown now for almost 2 months. And during this period, the government has introduced new economic measures in a rapid succession. Please note, in this item, I will only discuss several tax measures with more focus on corporate. For a complete list of all the tax measures, I think it will be good if you look at our website, burenlegal.com, and check the COVID-19 desk topic. Now, moving on. The measures I will discuss today are applicable as of today. So due to the rapid succession of these items, please note that they might have changed already in the meantime. Now, last week, the now scheme was already discussed in more depth. Also other items were discussed, and I will shortly review them when I get past to the cash flow. Now, the topics of today with the new developments are 4 topics. They are the Corona Reserve, the reduction of deemed normative salary for substantial interest holders, postponement of the bill excessive lending, and the work-related cost scheme. So the first item is the Corona Reserve. So in principle, if you would expect a loss in 2020, then you would only be able to set off such a loss with profits of 2019 at the time of filing your corporate income tax return. Usually, this means that you can only set off these costs of the losses in 2021 at the time of the filing of the tax return. Now, the government made it available to make use of a so-called Corona Reserve. This Corona Reserve makes it applicable to use in the 2019 corporate income tax return and makes it available for you to already include a loss that you expect in 2020 to include in 2019. Now, the second thing with this Corona Reserve is that you will move your losses forward to 2019, so you can also reduce your preliminary assessment of 2019. Keep this in mind. Recently, also more guidance has been given. I will discuss a few of these, this more guidance. So the 2020 expected loss must be due to the coronavirus and the taken measures. Also, the expected loss may not be higher than the total loss of 2020. It may not be higher than the 2019 profit expected. And the reserve should be allocated in addition to the other tax reserves. Finally, please note if you have a book year that's not equal to the calendar year, that you may include such a reserve in book years up to the 31st of March 2020. Keep that in mind. So the second item that I will discuss is the deemed normative salary for substantial interest holders. What this means is that substantial interest holders who have a salary from their company must have a certain amount of salary they allocate to themselves. Now, if the turnover declines, you are able, and a formula, a calculation is given how to calculate this, that you may also reduce the salary you allocate to the substantial interest holder. Please note that this might have some combination that it's not allowed to reduce the salary if you have the now scheme. Because of the now scheme, the salaries will still be available to the substantial interest holder. Please keep that in mind. The third item is the bill of excessive lending from your own company. This is a bill that would be enacted in 2022, which will be postponed to 2023. So it is available for you to lend from your company. And the last one is the work-related cost scheme. This is a scheme for employers to give tax-free allowances to their employees. The free space you can use to make such tax-free allowances is widened from 1.7 to 3%. This will make it available for you to give more free allowances to your employees, such as IT or laptops. In these times we work at home. Moving on to how to stimulate your cash flow position. Well, several measures, economic measures, have already been given, such as deferral of payment of taxes, making use of reducing your preliminary tax assessments. Please keep in mind you can do this for 2020, but also check the 2019 already imposed preliminary assessments. Furthermore, make use of the NOW scheme. And if you're eligible, maybe you can reduce the normative salary. Now, what other measures are you able to explore? First of all, I would like to check with you if you can use your bad debt. I'm sure that you have, for example, trade receivables. What if these trade receivables are not expected to be paid? Well, you can use a bad debt provision to be included in 2020 to reduce the profit of that year. Please check this with your accountant. Furthermore, you can use impairments on loans receivable if you expect these loans receivable are not going to be paid or not be paid in full. Then you can take into account an impairment during the year. Please keep in mind or use caution with using such an impairment because loans that are non-business-like can be ignored for tax purposes. Please discuss this with your tax advisor. Also, you can make use of provisions. For example, if you have maintenance for buildings, you can spread these over a few years and taking into account provision already. Furthermore, discuss payment deferrals with bank and suppliers and funding from shareholders or group companies if funds are still available. Moving on, I would like you to move on to the next sheet if possible. The bottlenecks for the NOW, I will discuss this really short because in the last presentation the NOW was covered quite extensively, so please look at that presentation which is available on the website. Now I will only discuss a few bottlenecks. For example, if you fire personnel, the NOW scheme, the compensation you will get from the government to provide the wages, will be drastically reduced if you fire personnel. For example, I have a calculation that I will try to make available to you after this presentation. If you have standard wages of over 400,000 per month, then you could get a wage compensation of 702,000 euros. What if you fire personnel, for example, in the total amount of 50,000 per month? Then the total final wage compensation will be reduced to 438. That's a massive decline in the compensation. Please note this topic is under discussion with the Dutch government, so this penalty might be is under discussion. Finally, also please check if in the month January the salaries were higher due to bonuses. This would also have a negative impact on your NOW scheme compensation. I will try to make available the calculation so you have a general idea of how this might work out. Thank you. That was it for my part. Back to you, Roy.
Yes, thank you very much, Erwin. And now, so I would like to give the floor to Ms. Frederica Hague, so in order to further elaborate about the corporate law.
Yeah, thank you, Roy, and thank you, Edwin, for the good summary of the tax measures that were taken and the NOW indeed. And to follow up on what Edwin was saying, now that the lockdown measures are being loosened, I think it's also important for companies to check if their turnover increases and if they still meet all the requirements that the NOW imposes on them. But like Edwin also mentioned, there is discussion about how the NOW will be changed. So that's also something that should be carefully considered in the next weeks. We cannot really say something about that at this moment. So yeah, please do reach out if you have any questions about that at a later stage. Well, I was scheduled to speak about corporate law, not about the NOW, so I will stop talking about that part now. And there is another risk that is associated with COVID-19 in view of corporate law that is related to the annual accounts that have to be adopted within 5 months after the end of a financial year. And if your financial year is equal to a calendar year, that means that this month the annual accounts need to be finalized. And that also means that a shareholder meeting will need to be scheduled. And physical meetings are in these times difficult, if not impossible, either because they are too big or because there are travel restrictions from outside the European Union. And therefore an emergency law was put in place, which makes it possible for Dutch companies to hold electronic meetings. They call it electronic, but it is basically the legal word that they use, but it means something like virtual meeting or online meeting or remote meeting, whichever you prefer to call it. And it is possible since the 24th of April to have electronic meetings for Dutch companies. That means that the management board is able to decide that general meetings, shareholder meetings are held virtually. And it's not necessary to amend the Articles of Association to be able to do that. The only thing that needs to be done is that the invitation for the shareholder meeting needs to mention that it will be held electronically. And then there are 2 additional requirements that need to be fulfilled. It must be possible to follow the general meeting via a live stream or any other way, electronic way to see the meeting, but it needs to be live. And shareholders and other people who are present at the meeting must be able to ask questions, for example, via chat box or Q&A box, like we have here in this webinar as well, or upfront by email. And that must be possible for 72 hours before the meeting takes place. Then when it comes to postponing the annual accounts or the end period for drafting and adopting them, that is normally, like I said, 5 months. And normally it's the shareholder meeting which can extend this period, but now it can also be done by the management board. And that is really important for management boards and managing directors, because in case of a bankruptcy, the delayed filing of annual accounts can lead to liability. So managing directors can really decrease their risk of being held liable in the case of a bankruptcy by extending the annual accounts period now. Plus, this emergency law also enables management boards to hold all their management board meetings electronically. Most management boards will already do that, but to the extent that Articles of Association do not make that possible for management boards to do that, this is now possible based on this emergency law. And this emergency law will be valid until the 1st of September 2020. It all depends on how the crisis develops, and if we go well, as we have been doing in the past weeks, whether it needs to be extended or not. So this was the corporate law part that I wanted to share with you. I had also prepared something on commercial contracts, and Roy already mentioned it. We already have the first COVID-19 case law, which is really, really fast when you look at it from an international perspective, and when you consider that the COVID-19 crisis only came to the Netherlands, well, 2 months ago. So when it comes to contracts, the biggest risks of this crisis for companies are either that it cannot fulfill its own obligations, or that the business partners cannot fulfill their obligations. And there may be various reasons for that. You can think about government bans, travel restrictions, shortages of suppliers, transport restrictions, you name it. And you may have heard about force majeure or unforeseen circumstances or things like reasonableness and fairness. And all these are legal tools to alter or terminate contracts. And I would like to point out two here in this webinar. So on the one hand, force majeure. What is that? Under Dutch law, force majeure is something that is really out of control of the parties, and no one can really do anything about it, but it leads to a party not being able to fulfill what it had agreed on. And there's one known case in the Netherlands from the time of the bird flu, and there was a judgment where the court agreed that force majeure was present, and it led to a party not being held accountable for not being able to meet its obligations in a contract. And that was because the bird flu had imposed certain restrictions on parties in the Netherlands, and that party couldn't fulfill its obligations under the contract as a result of these government restrictions. And there, apart from the force majeure, there's also the principle of reasonableness and fairness. And that is really a principle that is embedded in Dutch contract law and pops up everywhere in every case. And one of the rules that it leads to is that contractual provision does not apply if it would be unacceptable under standards of reasonableness and fairness. And this is, I know, this sounds really legal. So to be clear, if you cannot fulfill a contract, no, to put it differently, this, what I just said in legal language, means that if you're not able to fulfill your contract and it's unacceptable to hold you to it, then you don't have to fulfill it. But this unacceptability that I just referred to, that is really a high threshold. So that is really not easily met. And in that respect, we had the first judgment by the Netherlands Commercial Court in April, end of April, 29th. And the Netherlands Commercial Court is a rather new court. It was installed last year. You can conduct the entire proceedings in the English language, which is really new, also in a European perspective, and is a great chance for international business, because no translator is needed anymore. Anyway, the Netherlands Commercial Court had to handle a case last month, which was related to COVID-19 and to a potential acquisition of the shares of a company, the Global Champions Tour for show jumping horses. And in that case, the parties had agreed to a share purchase in December, or basically they had expressed their intentions regarding this share transfer in a letter of intent, and there was a breakup fee of 30 million euros for both parties if they didn't want to pursue the deal. And in March, the potential buyer, walked away from the deal, and he said he didn't want to pay the breakup fee because of COVID-19, and the court had to decide whether the breakup fee had to be paid or not. And in this case, the court agreed or decided that it was not unacceptable to have the buyer make the full payment of the breakup fee, or the potential buyer in this case, obviously. So that means that this breakup fee of 30 million euros had to be paid. And there was the biggest reason for that was that it was the party's own will to agree on such a high breakup fee, and this breakup fee served as a risk allocation. Also, the parties were really experienced in this field, and they were advised by their lawyers. And in addition, the potential seller, apart from that it lost the purchase price, which was obviously much higher than the 30 million euros, it also had to deal with a company that it wanted to sell, but now it was even a company that was in bad weather, and it had to deal with all the restrictions that show jumping horses, shows, tournaments are now dealing with. So a lot of decline in turnover and probably a lot of losses. So like I said, the threshold for unacceptability was not met in this certain case, but there may be other cases where the COVID-19 circumstances hit one party much more than another, or whether one party is really experienced in a certain field and the other one is not. So where there is much more disbalance between the parties, and then there may be a ground to say that it would be unacceptable to hold a party to a contract. So even though I stretched that this unacceptability is a high threshold, please don't think that it isn't a remedy for you in a specific case. So Roy, this was it from my side so far. Thank you for listening.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much. So and now the assigned period is coming. So it's question and answer sessions. So let's start. So I receive some nice answers, nice questions from different participants. So I will go through it one by one. So the first question is how does the Hague Business Agency help entrepreneurs and business at these critical times? So I believe I can answer these questions. Yeah, indeed, it's a very critical times for the investor relations, for the invest in Holland partners, including the Hague Business Agency, at this moment to attract business from all around the world to the Netherlands or to the Hague regions. But however, we are not really stay home and doing nothing. So and in two areas actually we are currently helping our clients. So and two target group we are targeting at this moment. So one is the existing clients. So we so-called investor relations clients. So with those clients, we are quite actively in asking their feedback and also about their status in the Netherlands, and to see in which area we can give them some assistance, and also we try to let the clients to access to the local knowledge. So that's why we have these webinars, and in the coming periods we will also have many other webinars in order to assist the existing clients to access to the local knowledge. But however, we also have some requests from foreign companies. They might not come to the Netherlands in the short future, but they are also they're intending to set up an office in the Netherlands. And in that regard, so we are now hosting, previously we host them for fact-finding trips. So bring them to The Hague, show them the city, and now it's not possible physically. However, we do it virtually. So we do open up a kind of online fact-finding trip. So in order to introduce the Netherlands, The Hague, to our potential clients. So this is how we help the clients at this point. So perhaps I answer your questions. So the second question is something for Edwin, I think. So how can a company prevent bankruptcy? So no one wants to have a bankruptcy for their business. So it's a very good question. So Edwin, the floor is yours.
Maybe is it something that you would like to take, or should I?
Please go.
Yeah. So I think for insolvency, the requirement is that a company has ceased to pay its debts. That's how the insolvency laws state it. And that means that if there are two creditors or more who do not get paid, the court will declare a company insolvent. And if that is the case, there's not really much you can do to prevent the insolvency once it is in court and you cannot pay. But before that, you can try to get all creditors to agree to accept only a portion of their debt, or that means you need to reach out to your creditors and get their agreement, and that makes the company survive in the end if they all agree. And also there is new legislation coming up that would lead to involvement of a court to get such an agreement with the creditors. And our insolvency colleagues can certainly say much more about this.
Is anything to add, Evin? So, and I think it's quite clear, which Frederica mentioned about in this regard, you can prevent the bankruptcy of your companies. So, shall we move to the next questions? So, the next question is: does THBA, the Hague Business Agency, has any criteria on company which you help, and what is those criteria? So I believe I can answer these questions. Of course, when we are selecting the targeting clients, so we want to target those clients who can contribute to the ecosystem of The Hague. But we do not have too much restrictions on the size of the companies. So we actually we help from startup companies to multinationals. So and if you do have some clients which they have the intention to come to the Netherlands and to come to the Hague regions, please feel free to link them to us or to contact us, so we can tell you more about the assistance which we can help the companies into their soft landing in the Netherlands. So I believe this is the answer. So the next questions is this I'm quite sure is for Edwin, because your name is on this question. So Edwin, is that true that paying out a 13 months might jeopardize the NOW subsidies to be received?
Well, I don't think that this will jeopardize the NOW scheme. 13th month will be provided in December, so I guess it will not jeopardize the month of January, which is an important month for taking into account the wages for the NOW scheme. So as far as I know, there are no restrictions for that.
Okay, yeah, thanks, Edwin. So the next question is about do foreign employees, so if they return to work to the Netherlands, or a new recruited foreign employees need to be quarantined after they arrive in the Netherlands?
So the Netherlands as such doesn't have any restrictions when it comes to traveling within the European Union. So the Schengen region within the European Union does have the restrictions. There's no traveling allowed from outside the Schengen region. And if there is traveling, then it is those people are kindly requested, no, really strictly requested to stay quarantined, but there's no government control in that respect. There is talk of implementing a Corona app for phones. This would be something that, if it comes, wouldn't be imposed by the government, but would be something that people can voluntarily install on their telephones. So it's different from the situation in maybe other countries where this is really a requirement for being able to travel or take part in public life.
Yes, yeah, thanks for the answer. And from what I know as well is that it's not obligatory, by the governments or by the rules that you have to put yourself in quarantine. But of course, the RIVM has a very clear guidelines that if you don't feel well, they recommend you to stay home for
Yeah,
at
and
least,
like you said, it's a recommendation. It's not. I personally, I'm sometimes really shocked when I walk on the streets how how coughing some people are, and I really think, why isn't there anyone telling those people to go home or give them a fine or anything? That doesn't happen.
Yeah.
It's really on a recommendation and a voluntary basis.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Thanks for the answer. The next question is, what compensations are available for the company that are stay closed? Because we know that there are a lot of business at this moment, they are not able to open. So what are the compensations are available for those companies?
Well, there are a lot. The government, well, as I said, in rapid succession, they have a lot of emergency and economic measures imposed. Yeah, I cannot give an answer on this. Use those measures. You really should check for yourself, for your own company, what measures can I take? Which measures are applicable for my company? And I think it would be good if you go to our website to check all the available options you have. Also with getting credits, with getting guarantees on credits, with the Now scheme, and reducing your costs and tax payables. I think that's the general idea.
And there's not a specific measure that is only available for all companies that are closed. It's fragmented.
Yes. Thank you. And I received some new questions. So one of the questions is that are there any in The Hague during these critical times? So a kind of subsidies specialized in the medical sectors.
I would need to check on that, to be honest. Maybe Edwin knows, but
yeah, for example, if you provide medical supplies, then the VAT is zero on supplying medical items. However, you should check if it's applicable to the provided medical supplies.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. And I think one of our investor relations Invest in Holland and partners, Innovation Corridor, they also provide different schemes, subsidies, which help the startup or the companies in certain sectors. So perhaps we can also come back to you in these questions. So in order to tell you more about the criteria of applying these subsidies, especially for medical companies. So the next question is for THBA. So after these critical times, which industry or sectors you see opportunities in the Hague area? So and what will be our challenge? So at this moment, of course, when you talk about The Hague, you think of the sectors of IT tech, new energy, NGOs, finance, and legal. So the THBA, we will remain ourselves in those top sectors. And according to our colleague, and also because of course during these critical times, we keep our dreamy eyes open in order to search for more opportunities within those sectors, which we discovered that there are some sectors, so we do see the opportunities specifically in those sectors. For example, that due to the way of living are different, so it became a very important issues and main drive of digitalizations of the world and also of The Hague. So therefore, that we will be continuously focusing in the sector of IT tech, namely the cloud areas, and also the cloud area, and also the software area. Yeah, but since they have a lot of demand, so and for us it's very important that to contact with the companies which can supply those demands. So, and the other one is finance sectors, because now nobody is going to use cash because of the social distance. So, and you see that a lot of multinationals, they are specialized in fintech, so namely the cashless payment. So, and in these areas, we will be also focused in the futures. It's definitely is kind of a challenge for all of us, but I think if the team of THBA, we realize the opportunities for the futures. So I think definitely there will be some challenge, but I think if we have the focus, we can be succeeded. So this is the answer. So, and now I do have so there's also another questions. So regarding due to the force measures, and is the office rental change to negotiable with the office space center, or has it, or if the company need to comply with what they sign in the contract?
Yeah, yeah, you can always try to negotiate, depending on, but what you're basically probably asking for is if you have any legal grounds to do that. And I think force majeure, I explained it when I was speaking before, that is something that is really out of the party's control. So the having to pay rent means that you need basically the financial means to do so, and in general, force majeure is not something that is related to financial inabilities. So if your cash flow is low, then a judge will not easily say, oh, that's a force majeure, even though that is related to COVID-19. However, there may be another legal ground that leads to the situation that you can argue that you should pay less rent, and that is the unforeseen circumstances, as a result of which your financial situation is lower. And we think that there could be a reason or an argumentation built around that, always obviously depending on the individual circumstances that your company is under. You actually need to have suffered actual turnover loss or cash flow issues. And I think in addition to the legal grounds, there will always be an interest also for the landlord to keep the tenant instead of losing all of them. So I think you as a tenant will have leverage to be able to argue that you should lower your rent.
Yes, yes. Thank you. Yeah, I think it's a very good answer. So now we do not have additional questions. So if you do, so please click the Q&A buttons, and also to submit your questions, so we will answer it. But I do have a question myself. So what will be the key message? Because of course, BUREN Legal, you establish a kind of COVID-19 desk in order to help the foreign and also the local companies, so to really get through this critical period. So, and most of our audience today who attend this webinar are foreign companies who established in the Netherlands. So, and what will be your key message or key recommendation to those companies in the tax matters and also in the legal matters to do to catch up and go through this critical periods. Yeah, so maybe, you know, I'm asking you to repeating what you are telling the companies, but you know, I feel it's quite important that to frame it in a key message in order to give to our clients. So shall we start with
I think the government
Frederick? Sorry.
The government, I think in a lot of countries are really trying to make sure, one, that their population stays healthy, but also that their economies stay healthy. And a lot of governments are implementing new measures in order to help the companies and the economy in the end. And that is not only the government, but also the legislator. And there are new laws coming up, and the law can be your friend in this crisis. And do absolutely check where it can help you and support your business. That would be my recommendation.
Yes, I like the words. The law can be your friend. Yeah, because we always see the law as our enemy. Yeah, in the past. Yes. So, Edwin, maybe you have some keywords, key message to our client.
Yeah, I think most importantly, I think getting yourself known with the measures available is the most important one. Also, get some advice from companies that have some knowledge of these items regarding tax, regarding legal, regarding accountancy. Get yourself well informed, also to overcome any bottlenecks that are in these measures. I would also like to return on one of the questions that I saw coming in. That was regarding the NOW scheme. It was regarding the 13th month. I hope it's clear that if the 13th month was included in December that last year, that it would not have a negative impact. However, if it is included, any bonuses in the month of January, this might have a negative effect on your NOW scheme. So please keep that in mind.
Yes, yeah, thank you. So, so we are about, you know, to finish this webinars. So, and but before I close this webinars, so I would like to inform you about the Hague Business Agency's client relations program. So within these programs, we are hosting not only these webinars, but also, you know, different webinars surrounding the hot topics related to the concerns about our clients and also related to these critical times. So the topic of our next webinars will be around talent sourcing. So, and it will be planned for May 28th. So if you have your agenda, so maybe you can book your times on the 28th of May to attend our webinars. And in addition to our webinars, which organized by the Hague Business Agency together with our partners, we also launched its own survey in measuring the crisis impact and identified the gap that we need to address for our clients. So we also hope that you can participate in our survey. So, and we will send you an email in the coming days about the questionnaires. So, and we also have started our first findings on our LinkedIn page. So if you visit our LinkedIn page, you can have, you know, some find out of the survey, the data of the first survey. So, and please follow us on LinkedIn for some future updates. Yeah, and lastly, so I would like to thank you for all your attentions. And once again, so I would like to give my warmest gratitude to BUREN Legal for hosting this wonderful workshop. So I think, you know, our clients will also very appreciate, and we learn a lot. And if you have any more questions, in the futures, you can always contact with BUREN or THBA, so for further assistance. Yeah, and also, I would like to give my gratitude to my colleague Luba, who is the manager of marketing and communications, who has been support these webinars behind the scenes. So thank you, everyone. So I would like to hope you stay safe and stay healthy, and see you next times in our other webinars, and see you on the 28th of May.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.